With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and today we're going to be talking about the Rotten Tomatoes score for Pacific Rim Uprising. Now, this movie is one that I think a lot of people out there have kind of been like, why? You know, I mean, it's been a long time since Guillermo Del Toro's Pacific Rim that came out in 2013. And the movie, while it did well in Asian markets, specifically China, did really great in China, failed to connect here with Western audiences. And so they decided for the sequel to really play up the whole kaiju mech battle. And that's having, well, what it looks to be here, very mixed results. So the movie opens up on Friday. It's directed by Steven Deknight. And if you are wondering whether or not you might like this, look, I just want to point this out there because I don't feel this gets said enough about him. He was the creator and showrunner of the 4 seasons of Spartacus. And if you can get past like the first 4 episodes of that show, I'd say the 3-4 episodes of that show, it starts to tone down on the hyper-violence and the way over-the-topness and actually starts to deliver a very competent show that by the time it's over, you genuinely care for the characters. And also its main star dying of cancer halfway through was just another thing that really kind of shows you the testament of the show. It kept going and it did it very well, and it was good, and I recommend it. Now, not only that, but Steven Deknight was also the showrunner on season 1 of Daredevil. So he was brought in after Drew Goddard took off, and he knocked it out of the park. So I have hopes for this. The guy's a good writer. He's a good producer, and I don't know how he is as a director. We're going to find out, but I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this one. So right now it's sitting at 52%, which is rotten score. Again, these are always taken with a huge, gigantic grain of salt. And it's got 30 fresh reviews and 28 rotten reviews. So, like I said, it's very, very mixed at this point. But here's the general plotline of the movie. It says here that John Boyega stars as a rebellious Jake Pentecost, a once promising Jaeger pilot whose legendary father gave his life to secure humanity's victory against the monstrous kaiju. Jake has since abandoned his training only to become caught up in the criminal underworld. But when an even more unstoppable threat is unleashed to tear through our cities and bring the world to its knees, he is given one last chance to live up to his father's legacy by his estranged sister, Mako Mori, who is leading a new brave generation of pilots that have grown up in the shadow of war. They seek justice for the fallen. Their only hope is to unite together in a global uprising against the forces of extinction. Jake is joined by his gifted rival pilot Lambert and 15-year-old Jaeger hacker Amara as the heroes of the PPDC become the only family he has left. Rising up to become the most powerful defense force ever to walk the earth, they will set the course for a spectacular all-new adventure on a towering scale. Pacific Rim Uprising is directed by Steven Deknight. Also stars Jing Tan, Bern Gorman, Adria Arjona, and Charlie Day. That's a bit of a mouthful of a description. I feel like they really are trying to play up the John Boyega character here because we're meant to really feel for him. And that's, I don't know, if that's your description of what's going on, that may be a problem. I mean, people didn't really go to see Pacific Rim because they were like, hey, Charlie Hunnam's in the movie. But after you watch the movie, you realize that Guillermo Del Toro was basically just sucking off Idris Elba the entire time. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and not one damn bit. I think it worked for the movie. But let's take a quick look here over at the reviews here. We got the fresh. Start with the fresh. I like to look, if you're new to the series, I like to look at the top 5 reviews. I feel that these give us a good overall understanding of what the general consensus for the fresh are, and then we're going to go to the rotten after that. So Jake Cole from Slant Magazine says, Steven Deknight's film lacks for Guillermo Del Toro's visual acumen, but makes up for that with an energetic sense of chaos throughout its front and center skirmishes. Now, as I did point out, this movie is kind of being aimed for the Asian market, which is why it's playing up the kaiju and the mech thing a lot more, why it looks a lot more cartoonish, I think. They're trying to make it more of an anime. And while the visual acumen that Guillermo Del Toro brings to every movie that he makes is not one that's necessarily going to be needed for this type of reboot, because that's what I'm basically referring to Pacific Rim as, a reboot. This one is more trying to go, yeah, no, the first movie happened, but we want to set up further characters and set up further stories and set up further battles by treating it kind of like this. Now, Kate Walsh from the Tribune News Service here says, Spaney shines in her first role, and casting director Sarah Holly Finn stacked the cast with the role of interesting, magnetic newcomers. However, Pacific Rim Uprising is propelled by the powerful gravitational pull of John Boyega's charisma. And that's good. I like Boyega. He was awesome in Attack the Block. I like him in Star Wars. And so I think they're really trying to play that up. They want him to be the draw here. I just don't know if he, as an actor, has reached that point yet. I don't think people are going to line up around the block to go, hey, Finn's in a new movie. I just don't see that happening. Now, Mark Kennedy from the Associated Press here says, Pacific Rim Uprising is a visually stunning, expertly crafted dose of cheer-at-the-screen fun. It's a definition of what a blockbuster sequel should be, which that's pretty high praise, gives it a 3.5 out of 4. Molly Freeman from Screen Rant here says, still, Pacific Rim Uprising is a fun return to the Pacific Rim universe that will undoubtedly delight fans of Boyega and provide some intriguing new concepts to the franchise's mythology. So again, we're seeing this Boyega-centric approach, right? And even with the description of the film, it was very Boyega-centric. So this movie is John Boyega fights monsters. I think that's really what it is. It's not about the Jaegers versus the kaiju. It's not about the fact that you have warring companies that, and I've even speculated before that it's warring companies that are going to be the cause for this. There's going to be a company that makes kaiju, or that makes the Jaegers, that realizes that they don't need them anymore, really, and so they reopen the rift in order to bring out more to basically kind of like, bring out profits. They're creating a war in order to make money. Very similar to William Randolph Hearst creating a fake war in Central America in order to sell newspapers, right? It's one of those kind of concepts. But I think it's also kind of in line, in essence, with maybe some of our own defense spending here in the United States, but I'm not trying to get too political on that one. And finally here, Soren Anderson from the Seattle Times says, monster movie fans will certainly get their money's worth with this one. And that might be a little bit of a jab at the last movie, which there were some solid fights in that movie, but ultimately it was very character driven. Here it feels like Boyega is a character that's going to be the driving force, and then everything else revolves around that. So again, it sounds interesting, and it gives me higher hopes. Now let's look at the negative reviews here. Jeremy Johns here says, there's no jaw-dropping scene. The movie's biggest flaw is that it tries to do too much and it overreaches, which does kind of seem like that just from the trailer. Like I said, they want to make this a series. They're trying to overreach in order to set up another franchise, and that could be where they fall flat. Danielle Zolzman here from Silsey at the Movies says, Pacific Rim Uprising will offer thrills, but the sequel is missing a lot of the ingredients that made the first film an entertaining hit, i.e. the characters. That's what it's missing. It's not going to be necessarily the action, because the action is front and center in the trailers. It's the characters. Matt Goldberg from Collider here says, Pacific Rim Uprising is serviceable enough on its own terms, but it can't help but feel like a pale imitation of the first movie. But you can't sit there and people, yeah, I'm just saying, it's like, okay, look at I want to say Jurassic Park 2 or Jurassic Park to Jurassic Park 3. We're not going to put in 2 on this one. But you had Spielberg at probably one of his greatest moments of his career, and then followed up by Joe Johnston, who's a good director in his own right, very good director, but people are going to look at the two and they're going to compare this one to the original, and look at the visual acumen and whatnot, and everything else. And there's always different factors: lower budget, rush production, they're trying to change directions. That's what I feel is going on here, but I do get what Goldberg's trying to say. Now, Rebecca Pauley from Film Journal International here says, be prepared to fall asleep whenever Scott Eastwood is on screen. And I can see that. Go back and watch Suicide Squad or The Fate of the Furious. And I like Scott Eastwood, and I think he's coming into his own, but he hasn't hit it yet. Especially when it comes to, let's say, The Fate of the Furious, where they start calling him Little Nobody. They start joking that he's there. He's meant to be the new Paul Walker character, but they're not giving him the personality of a character in order to kind of break through to become one of the team. That might take place in the final 2 films, but that's kind of where it's at. And then Suicide Squad, he was there, and then he wasn't. He's around, he lingers, but he hasn't broken through yet, and that might be here what she's saying. Now, finally, Robert Colger from Flickering Myth here says, Pacific Rim simply had more personality, whereas Uprising delivers the same style of excitement, but filtered through a more generic Hollywood lens. And that tends to be the case in a lot of these particular sequels, is that they're trying. Now, Universal has a lot of money. They got a couple $1 billion franchises, so they're probably giving the experimentation on this one, but you can basically see that the budget's been cut. You can basically see that when Legendary brought it over from Warner's, they slashed the budget down. Legendary's recently been purchased by a Chinese company for $3 billion. That's probably one of the reasons why this movie got made. was to appeal to that marketplace. This movie is made entirely for the Asian marketplace, and there's nothing wrong with that. Kaiju fans, mech fans here in the United States, those who like Gundam and those who really liked Godzilla Monster Planet or something that was on Netflix. That movie is bad, by the way. They're going to like this sort of thing. And personally, I'm down for it. I like a good popcorn movie. I like a good, colorful, in-your-face, fun adventure film. And I like Steven Deknight, and I like the cast involved in this one. So I'm hoping that it's going to be good. But the question is, what do you guys think about this? Do you think that it's going to be good or it's going to suck? These are things I want to know. Be sure to let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you haven't already, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, check back, I'd say pretty often for more content from me. And hell, if you just want to watch it right now, you can go right ahead.